Truth Bombers Podcast.
Truth Bombers Podcast.
The group chat turned podcast with your hosts, Russ, Lockie, and BJ.
Served me very, very well in winter, this beanie has. Kept me warm in the gym.
You do wear it quite often. It's not just wind related, which is nice because otherwise you'd never get any use out of it.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, before we get into it, and if anyone out there listening has any idea, not having been to the football for a while, now you have to download the app to get the Essendon app to get tickets to games. But when I go into the Essendon app to get tickets for games and I hit my member card, nothing comes up with like any ability to like buy tickets.
Yeah, mine's the same as Russ.
Yeah. Check your membership cards, right?
It says that I can sign into Ticketmaster, but like, anyway, if anyone listening out there has a clue, if anyone from the Essendon,
When was the last time you got to a game? 3 years ago?
No. We went to the Carlton game, remember? With the tail.
Oh, last year. Yeah.
All right, shall we?
Yeah. The smile on my face for the first time.
Winning on a Friday night is a good feeling. You got the whole weekend to watch the replay an indefinite amount of times, and the KO mini, and KO now doing KO bites as well. So it's like a mini of the mini. And then the AFL replay.
I haven't watched the replay yet, so I'll maybe this afternoon.
We just watched the full replay, and I still get nervous, even though I know the outcome and the result. Particularly in that third quarter, I was like,
we can still lose it.
Starting to get stressed that maybe, we were going to lose it the second time around. I think this is episode 32, but it might be episode 33. We're getting through them, boys. We might have our own 150th episode celebration by the end of the year if we keep up at this rate.
Well, have we passed more podcast episodes than Caldwell's played games yet?
We have. We did that by about episode 10, I think. We should actually see. I think Perco's maybe got us by 1 or 2. So by the end of next week, we should have railed him back in. Nonetheless, winners are grinners, boys. Lockie, 3 words describe the game.
I've got 4 words, if that's allowed.
We'll go for that.
Where has this been?
Yep.
We're back.
Between the two of you, got 6 words each. And I guess mine is, how's that game plan? It's interesting. There's always big talk about, after the bye, clubs come back out and they fixed a few things and blah, blah, blah. But what we saw on Friday night was so vastly different to anything that it looks like we've been trying to do all year. I guess the question is, why wait till round 13 to do that? Why didn't we just do that at round 3?
Yeah.
Like, this is that forward moment, like momentum, play on at every opportunity, run and carry. Like, this is the brand of football that helped us make the final last year, that showed so much promise, that had us knocking teams off, that like got us up and about for what we could continue to be this year. And we've seen no remnants of it at all. Even when we beat the Crows, even when we beat the Hawks, we didn't see it. But we've come out on Friday night and actually strung it together, and it looked fucking good. We looked good. For the first time this year, we looked good.
Yeah. Injuries obviously play a big role in that. Having available personnel, Stringer as one, a few others sort of around our midfield. I think that makes a big difference. But the disappointing thing is, hopefully you've got a game plan that stacks up, whether you've got a couple of key outs or not. And that's what we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Well, I think it just proves, like we said, you get the tackle count up. It's a big barometer if you can actually win the games. And we win the tackle count again. There was players that had 7 tackles, 9 tackles each. It's effort we haven't seen. And defensive pressure in that forward 50, like we're watching that first quarter just before, and to get 3 turnovers in our defense in our own 50, like we haven't seen it all year, let alone in a 10-minute passage.
Yeah, so let's get straight into the good, because obviously like winning is good in general, but I think it was more how we went about it this week as opposed to our other 2 wins of the season, where I think we were more lucky just not to lose against Adelaide, and then Hawthorn we played like one good quarter. But for me the biggest good is we're finally starting to see some of those key elements or structural improvements that actually you can build a winning game and a winning brand on. And that forward pressure, particularly in the first quarter, like I think we had the ball in our forward line 70% of the quarter, but still just can't quite convert. And I think that's been the thing that's let us all down. Good passages all year, but when the momentum's with us, we just haven't capitalized on it. But for me, that's the final step in the difference between like being a good team and being a contender is your ability to make the most of your opportunities. But very much improved.
Yeah. A lot of goods, I think, this week for the first time for a while as well. Like I could list almost everyone other than Ham and talk some goods about them. I think Pidge McGrath in playing a deeper back than he normally does, playing with a half back, but even being that last man in defense and the pressure he brought to that last man and, taking critical marks above head, even when it didn't go his way, putting it to our advantage. It's definitely, I think, his best game of the year.
Yeah. Locke, I know you've been a big fan of him and a big advocate for just needs a couple of games to get going, but Stringer played better. He was much more involved, didn't look as far away. He still doesn't look to his best just yet, but had just a couple of glimpses of that last year. That one that he kicked from outside 50 in the third quarter? And then he just streaked off to the bench celebrating completely on his own. The fastest I've seen him move as he got off the ground for a breather. But for someone, he had 16 touches, which surprised me that he actually was as involved as he was, and even better, 6 tackles. And we talk about that inside 50 pressure and that forward pressure. It comes from those guys laying tackles and being aggressive and locking the ball in. That gives defense that we've spoken about all year a chance to set up, catch their breath, get into position.
Play out the whole game too.
Yeah.
And I think last week we saw that he probably didn't have that match fitness. You could tell he played the full game out, a full quarter effort, which we haven't seen out of him for a long time.
Yeah. I sort of agree with you, Russ. Absolutely every single player played an important role except for Ham. So I think we'll get to it when we do our 3-2-1s. McGrath back, he started his career there, and I never saw him get beaten one-on-one in his first season. Every single time he would either beat his man or as a spoil and it would halve the contest. And he was back to that on Friday night. Sorry. But yeah, maybe we get to the 3-2-1 and we'll talk about some of our favorite efforts.
Yeah. I'll give you another good. Our disposal count in general was down. And now to me, what that's saying is guys like, Merritt and Shield, in the middle, there's none of this flicking it around and going nowhere with the ball, but just racking up the stats. It seemed to be every time we got the ball, even if we were handballing, they were forward handballs with run and carry and then a penetrating kick in. It wasn't this dicking around with it that we've seen all year. I thought that was something that was good to finally see. And you could see the intent from very early on, even from Ham. We're taking contested mark, go to ground and looking to get up back to the feet quickly to give the hands off and keep things moving forward. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was the first time we didn't have in that top 5 disposal winners. I mean, we normally had 4 of the top 5 most weeks. Only one player in the top 5 in disposal counts.
Yeah.
Do you think that's it has a little bit to do with not having Parrish in there?
I think it's got more to do with the style that we were playing. We got smashed in clearance. Arguably, if Parrish was in there playing the same style and winning more of that initial ball, maybe we do end up beating the Saints by 10 goals as opposed to 30 points.
Yeah. Or he could be the old 1-2s.
The Sunday Footy Show did a good analysis of our defensive structure. And they sort of referenced, it was probably the first time anyone had seen us this year push up hard at the ball carrier. Yeah. So we still played a similar zone defense, but the difference was we had a player rushing at their kicker and puts them under pressure. Whereas previously we've sort of held back off them and let them just dispose of it however they want. Yeah. So we've talked about maybe Laverde playing too aggressive sometimes with his positioning, but at the ball user, we really charge them and put them under pressure. And then, like you mentioned before, then they did turn it over in their back 50 and were able to score some pretty easy goals.
Yeah, I thought from speaking of defense, there was actually some communication and cohesiveness. Like, Max King, every time the ball went forward after the first quarter, he was 2 out or 3 out, like we were getting back in numbers to support Laverde or Ridley or Kelly or whoever happened to get that matchup at the time. And other than that one that Nick Hine got done for holding the ball at the bottom of the contest, we had him 4-on-1. We made it work, and arguably when we're 3-on-1, not all three need to be like up launching at the contest, like maybe keep one down. But yeah, it actually looked like there was a bit more team first kind of approach, which we haven't seen all year, which was nice. Run and carry, like I think obviously Hindy and probably Shield were both watching the game on Thursday night when they brought up Adam Saad's bounce count, and both were making quite a conceited effort to try to catch him. But it was nice to see, like we were chatting before, and it's like, you're okay with Hind getting pinned for holding the ball once or twice a game because it means he's probably gone on 12 or 13 runs. And even when he is getting caught, he's still gained 30 meters when he has 3 bounces. And it's just that last little bit, just don't take that final step that maybe he needs to correct. But he had 690 something meters gained for the game. Like, it was the Hind of last year, the Hind that they were comparing to Saad and talking about how good a deal that was for us. Like, he was back. He was back to his old self.
8+ score involvements as well. I think I remember looking up and he got done for holding the ball. I'm like, what are you doing, mate? And then you look up and the stat shows 8 score involvements. I'm like, all right, I'll let you have this one then. They don't know how it's going to work, but we'll take it.
Keep going with the goods. Keep working our way through.
I'm out of goods.
Really?
You're out of goods?
Mate, it was just getting warmed up.
Well, I've got individual players, but I'd rather bring them up in the 3-2-1. All
right. Okay, well, let's skip through then. The bads. Obviously, there's still things that need working on. Our high performance team being one of them. I think Pidge has done his adductor, so he'll miss against West Coast. West Coast now, we kind of looked at it as like we should win it. What does it mean if we don't? After you've beaten the Saints, looking ahead to next week, it's like, we don't just have to win next week. Like, we need to show a lot of what we showed last night. And I guess the upside is if we do, we'll be fine. But I thought Pidge had played the best game I've seen him play in, I can't even remember how long. And so to see him now miss next week is just like, fuck. Like, now we talk about the importance of continuity in these players when they start playing well. It just becomes that year-long battle of keeping them on the park.
Yeah, I actually had that as my ugly, to be honest, because we talk about Stringer coming back from a hamstring, does his hamstring. Snelling coming back from a calf, does his calf. McGrath coming back from a little groin tweak in training, does his groin. Like,
is that right?
Yeah.
How poor is our high performance manager?
Yeah.
Low performance manager, I think we should relabel him. If there's a review on, are we looking at him? Obviously,
we have to be looking at him. We have to be looking at Sean Murphy and being like, what's going on with rehab protocols here?
It would be nice to not have people get injured 1 week after getting back from injury.
Yeah. And that, well, I guess that beckons the question is, are they, I mean, to be fair, if this is the baseline fitness test that you have to pass to be cleared and you pass it, like, how much of the players are saying, would McGrath have said, knowing that it might cost him his spot in the side against the Saints, even if he was feeling a little bit sore, that like, no, I'm good in order to play? Like, if that's the case, then how much can you put on Sean Murphy in that case?
Yeah. Is there any credentials this Murphy guy?
Well, I'm sure he does. Yeah.
Can we do a background check?
Well, one thing sometimes I think in a position that he's in, you have to have an ability to say no to the player, even if they are feeling good. I feel like if you're like, hey, I think you're a high risk because we're only 1 week since we tweak something.
Yeah.
Like, don't let them play. Like, so with Stringer, Snelling, McGrath, so there's multiple players now where it's happened. Stringer missed 4 to 5 more weeks. Snelling's missed almost the whole season because he re-injured his calf. Like, it's not just one game that they might miss. It's four to 6.
Joe Danaher missed 4 years.
Yeah, I'd rather him miss one extra week and then come back and it's like, yep, I don't think there's any risk whatsoever. Then, there's a little bit of risk, but we're going to let you play.
Do you think, granted that how Friday night turned out, and given that we've got West Coast this week, do you think you kind of take that with McGrath to come back, have the best game you've played in ages against the Saints, we get away with the win, and then it's like if you got to miss one, you miss the West Coast game?
No, it's not a final. It's not like we're in a position where one win means we make the top 8 or top 4. Like our team needs continuity, and it's something we haven't had all year.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Bads?
Are we doing 3, 2, 1, or are we going bads?
We'll go bads and we'll go uglies, and then we'll get into the best.
We've already said Major Ham being
Ham.
bad. I don't know where to start. Like, he doesn't look up to it. He doesn't look to be an AFL standard player.
He always seems to be, and this might be why he's getting a call up. Like Locke's always talked about how fit he is and how much of a runner. He obviously knows as well the structures, the setups, the plans, because he is always in the right spot where you want him to be. It's just that then he fumbles it or he seems to like turn it over, and it's just like the disposal is just ugly, you know? And it's like you're getting into the right spot and you're getting the ball, but then you're just like killing us with the turnover that seems to stem from it.
He's no contest at the ball. 1-on-1, he's never going to win the contest. There was, I think
took a couple of good contested marks, like credit where credit is due. Got beaten a lot, a lot.
Like you're 1-on-1, if it's not a mark and you're going for the ball, I've never seen him win that contest before.
Yeah, I think his contest work is very poor at AFL level. He loses a lot of one-on-ones. And you're right, he does get to enough contests. He almost needs to, I always talk about Langdon for Melbourne, who's a winger. He almost needs to like play really wide, and then he might get used a little bit more and he'll have a little bit of space. He almost gets sucked in a little bit too much towards the corridor. And then when it's a one-on-one, it's like, he's going to get ragdolled. He's a 5'11", 80 kilos. I could push him over sort of guy.
Yeah.
Is he? I would be surprised if he was 5'11". Is he that tall?
I'm not sure exactly of his height. He's not 6 foot.
You get the point. Yeah. Interesting though, like Langdon, how kind of like impactful he is on that Melbourne team. Like they're one of the teams that use the corridor the least amount in the league. And I guess from our perspective, given that we were always continually looking to go in, he's got his actual physical stats there. 182. Yeah, there you go. Basically 6 foot. Given how much we were looking to go inborn, well, maybe that's the plan is we always look to go to the corridor and let's play Heppel on a wing and Ham on the wing and not use those guys and just bypass them and go like straight through the cuts.
Oh, we didn't talk about the good with Heppel on the bench for.
Oh, that's the ugly. I think that's kind of ugly.
It's borderline. Like he was on the bench for a whole quarter. We managed to win the quarter with 7 goals.
Third quarter, Heppel comes off after the Saints have kicked 5 in a row and we kick 6 in a row in return. I guess that's not a reflection
of your captain
of like his impact on the game.
He had this, like always says, he stock standard 1 tackle, 22 possessions. Did 0 with the football and turned over about 5.
Yeah, it was the same again this week. I think he had 20 touches and 1 tackle.
Look, I didn't think he had a bad game. Very, very amusing. Well, very amusing when he gets stuck on the bench and then we get a good roll on. That was one of my bads. The Saints kicking those 5 quick goals in the third. That sort of looked like how we've looked all year, where teams have just absolutely been able to get such a quick run on. But to our credit, we obviously turned that around.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the goods that we didn't mention was like, yep, they did get a run on, but we didn't drop the head, and we still won that quarter.
Yeah.
And that was probably the most pleasing thing was that like, yeah, we had to absorb it for a while. We actually changed. Was good to see we changed our tactic a little bit there when they did have that momentum and took the pace out of the game a little bit, played a little bit more of a kick mark. It almost shows like we're starting to mature as a group. We're starting to understand the game as a group to be able to read it and adjust and adapt on the fly. And maybe that's the biggest turning point is you can't there's too much time to get a message from the coaching crew or the box out onto the field, and I guess that's what leadership and experience is having cool heads that understand the game, like start to direct, the younger players around and what needs to happen. But that was nice to see. Uglies.
Well, I'm back to, I don't want to put this as the ugly thing, but a bit worried about Peter Wright still. I know he kicked the 4 goals. 2 of them came pretty late when the game was kind of already over. He missed 2 pretty early. For someone who should be taking a lot of lead up marks, he's lost a little bit of that forward craft of like lead up patterns. I don't know if he's relying on Jonesy to do more of the lead up and he sort of takes the back ball. But there's probably 3 or 4 times he was man in front of the pack and got away from his man and still couldn't hold on to the ball. He hasn't kicked any goals the last 3 weeks.
He's out of form a little bit.
I don't know if I don't know what it is. I kept thinking last year when he had those sort of patches where he wouldn't score goals, it was more the delivery in there. I don't think the delivery has been bad the last couple of weeks for him not to get any goals. He just doesn't seem to have that sort of, I don't know, he doesn't win those 50-50 balls in the air or,
I think, sorry, Locke, you go, mate.
Well, a couple of things. He's just kicked 4 goals and you're bagging him.
No, I said it's hard to say that
you're bagging him for the last 3 weeks when he's just had like a reasonable game. But I would say,
yeah, exactly, reasonable. Like we're talking about someone that was winning a few weeks ago, clunking 7 and 6, and now he's had a patch of 3. And again, yeah, he's got 4 goals, but could
have been another bag of 6 or 7.
Yeah, here's what I'd say: Harry Jones has been back in that forward line the last few weeks. And it's looked like they've flown for a lot of marks together. And a lot of times I feel like they're both sort of getting their hands on it, but they're bringing a defender into that contest. And so neither of them are taking that clean mark. I think just a few more games and hopefully you see them actually have different leading lanes and patterns. And then we can get some one-on-ones that are more advantageous for them.
I think even the one-on-ones on Friday night, he wasn't winning though. That's what I'm worried about.
There definitely was. Over the last couple of weeks, and there was a few more on Friday night where he gets both hands to the ball, man in front, and just drops. Yeah. But I'll say this for Peter Wright on Friday, there seemed to be a lot more of when he was out of position and couldn't take the mark, was at least doing enough to bring the ball to the ground. So contesting, and then we were doing quite well out of that contest. And I think kind of looking again through the stats, it wasn't, there's a lot of pressure that comes with bomb it long and hopefully Peter Wright can kick 7 and we win. But when you have as many contributors on the scoreboard as we had on Friday night, it takes that pressure off. And once the pressure's gone, or once the opposition realizes they have to spread their defense because Harry Jones has kicked 2, Guelfi's kicked 2, Perko's kicked 2, Martin's kicked 1, Stringer's kicked 2. All of a sudden, like Peter Wright starts getting forgotten about, they panic, and then he comes in and kicks 4, and we've kicked 15 goals for a game.
Yeah.
Right. You want someone to be that target and that speed. I actually think Harry Jones below his knees has been incredibly impressive this year.
He's needed so good.
I don't know, since he's been backed, has he kicked a goal off a set shot? I think most of them have kind of been like crumbing or like on the run. And he kicked that unbelievable goal from the boundary that wasn't a goal because it was out of bounds. But just like he's starting to excite me again. He's starting to actually get me back on. And I think we've just missed having him in the team. But
absolutely. Below ground would have been horrible. Below the knees, would have been horrible.
Yeah. My big ugly for the game was Geary's eyebrows. I don't know if his missus is like studying like beauty or whatever they call it, to have a, like a lash and dash kind of joint, but they were clearly painted on or textured or threaded. They were so dark. It was darker than the rest of his hair. And every time I turned around, he looked like, the evil baby from The Simpsons that Maggie Simpson always has the beef with.
The monobrow.
Yeah, just like these super angry, like expressioned eyebrows. That was my big ugly.
Gresham you're talking about.
Was it Gresham? What did I say,
Yeah.
Geary? Yeah, Gresham.
Yeah, Gresham.
My ugly is 15 minutes into the last quarter, the stat popped up that we had not kicked a goal since round 10 in the last quarter. Round 14, are we round 14 or 15? 14. We hadn't kicked a goal until 15 minutes into the last quarter since round 10. That is a fucking ugly stat.
Well, we've been I think we kicked no goals 5 against Carlton. That cost us the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Against Porter is pretty similar. I think both teams kicked 4 or 5 behinds. And
one goal was kicked in the last half.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. And that's, again, the Carlton game, we had one less scoring shot there and lost by 4 goals. And we kicked like 7 goals, 11 or something.
Yeah.
And, like, we're lucky it didn't cost us against the Saints, but 15 goals, 17, like that's a lot of chances, and not just a lot of very gettable chances that we just sprayed. Like a lot of those set shots, 40 to 50 meters out, not even on a 45-degree angle. I think, Wright hit the post, Perkins hit the post.
A couple of touches.
A couple fell short, a couple of touched through. It's just like, if you can get even 2 or 3 more of those, that can be, we look at last year when we had 9 games decided by less than 2 goals. Like, that's the difference in a lot of those.
It reminded me of the game we had this week of last year. It's like we weren't 100% perfect, and it was that little but we got away with it because we actually could, get in the 50, and we had people scoring goals. We had everyone contributing goals.
Yeah,
it kind of reminded me of last year where everyone just played their role and somehow got through it.
3, 2, 1. Should we just go through the list and have a bit of a chat about some of the standout performances?
Massimo first before we go into the 3, 2, 1s. I don't know,
go through the players.
We'll start with him. Coming in, what has he got? 15
touches, 9 kicks, 6 handballs, 2 marks, and a tackle.
Number 1 possession getter in the third quarter with 9 possessions or 10 possessions, something in that one quarter. I was pretty happy with him for a first gamer.
He looked composed. Even when he was under pressure, getting tackled and had to dispose, he was still hitting targets.
His disposal was great, handballs plus his kicking ability, which is why he was brought into the team, because we don't have anyone that very few people could actually hit targets. Let's hope he just gets better and better.
Yeah. My 2 words for him were going to be clean and composed.
Yeah.
I think he just used the ball well. He didn't look flustered. At times in our back 50, sometimes we make horrible decisions, and I didn't think he made any terrible decisions. I thought he played really well.
He was also willing to take on that 45-degree kick back into the corridor, to bite it off. It wasn't like, he was clean, but he was kicking super wide, as part of a switch or anything like that. Like he was in and under, winning ball and getting out and hitting targets.
Remind me of Archie Perkins' first game. Just looks like he belongs in the AFL.
Yeah, it's actually nice having D'Ambrosio, someone like that in the team, where you can almost have half-back rotations now. Between Redmond, and we'll talk about Redmond and Hind, but with a McGrath or, and now D'Ambrosio, obviously got a Heppel there as well, but you're kind of able to rotate. So you've always got someone that's willing to break a line off halfback, but 2, a couple of clean users of the ball to just bring us off that back flank into attack. I thought he played a great game.
Yeah. It's going to be hard in 3-2-1 because I think, like we said before at the start of the pod, everyone just played a really good team game. And there's probably, other than Ham, you could probably give one vote to pretty much the whole team for how they played. I reckon it's going to be hard to get that maybe the 3 and 2 you can put down, but I think the 1 I reckon it's going to be hard to decide this week.
We'll get there. Red Dog for me. I mean, you talk about guys that played the best games of the season. 31 touches, 19 kicks, 11 marks. He was just prolific, and having him steady in the back and then having Hind willing to run and carry and bounce. That is the combination that I want to see. There's always one forward. There's always one back. Hind loves to run and carry. We've talked about Redmond's ability to have that really penetrating kick inside. Perfect, boys.
He's always there for the fast 1-2. When someone has a, free kick, he's always there to back him up to move the ball fast, which God knows we need.
Yep.
Yeah. He was my 3 as well, Benny.
Yeah. Redmond.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
3 to Redmond. I gave 3. My 3 was Pidge.
I went 2 for Pidge, but you won. You lost it. So.
Caldwell, I think he's starting to really string a bit together. I know, we expected a bloke with less than 10 games to come out and show the experience and composure of a guy with 200, but week to week, he is building and he is getting better, and he doesn't necessarily have to have 40 touches. He's had 23, but he was just seemed to always be in and around that contest and there and thereabouts, you know, and quite often was that given release player. I thought he played a really good game.
7 tackles.
Yeah.
And 7 tackles.
Yeah.
And he's leading the club in tackles this year.
Yeah. I was going to give him a vote. I thought, just like you sort of said, there was moments in the midfield where I thought potentially they were going to get on top, and then Caldwell would lay a really big tackle, or he had clean hands and got a handball out of the contest. I thought he had a really good game.
Yeah. I would be tempted to give my one vote, if it doesn't go to Caldwell, to Dylan Shield. I've been pretty fucking hard on Shield this year in terms of what I want to see. His last 2 weeks have really impressed me. I thought he was incredibly impressive against Carlton. And this week, there was a few instances of things he'd do. His tackles this week, he was putting blokes down. He was dispossessing the ball. So his tackles were actually sticking. He's had 5. He's gone forward a few times, couple of running bounces. There was one in particular, I think it was he ended up getting it to Guelphy, took 3 bounces, kicked it forward, crumbed the contest, and then just like sponged the kick. But that willingness to go forward, and, you know, a couple of weeks ago, he would have got that ball, kicked it forward, and then trotted on, you know, whereas this week he was willing to run, carry, fuck the kick to the target, or it was bounced, and he followed up his work. And that's the effort that you want to see from Shield, because he is a fucking jet. He has got the capacity and the ability. We just haven't seen it.
Do you think it's a confidence thing? Because I always see him as, when everyone starts talking about his kicking efficiency, he comes out, he's hesitant to kick it. If he looked like he was just going after the ball and just split-second decision, going for the kick and not thinking. Maybe that's just a confidence thing. He's like, all right, I know I can do it. You know, although coaches back me in, if I do fluff a couple, I can still run after it and then show the second effort.
Short answer is yes. I don't like Shield kicking for goal. Like, I don't like him calling for the ball in forward 50.
You're not that guy.
I'd much rather he look to give off.
Because his kicking efficiency was a lot better this week and last week. Actually hitting targets.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had Shield as my number 2. I thought he had a good game. And we were talking about this the other night in the last podcast app. He was a player I really singled out as needing another good game. He had one against Carlton, and I just need to see him back it up as leaders should, and he did.
Yeah. Perko, I want to put on blast as well. Again, like, wasn't, you know, didn't PR in terms of touches or anything else, but
blast in a good way or a bad way?
In a good way.
Okay.
Yeah. When he
put on blast is like, I'm going to put them on blast. Like,
I don't
know. I was like, wait a second.
I said it, and I was like, that's not what actually I mean. But yeah, to shout him out, like, again, a couple of really good, strong contests that he came off best in. He was tackling hard. Like, he wasn't just like wrapping a tackle and holding them. He was like trying to take them off their feet, dump them on the ground, and still got that flair, that sell the candy play on from the fucking boundary, which he spinoled. But like, you got to give him credit for trying. And in the end, kicked his goal. And I think he kicked his goal in the 4th quarter too, when like you kind of just needed that little steadier. Hit the post in the 4th as well. But he is someone who, for me, is like, yeah, when you're picking the 22, like, he's not anywhere in doubt of getting dropped. He's been super consistent, but like his effort and his contest work are just continuing to improve. And I guess probably as well, another one of those indications that things that come along, the closer you get to the 50 game mark, you know. So he'll be at like 40 games, I think, by the end of this season. I think he's ready to take that next step. And if Cox can come along for that ride as well, like, he's someone that we've sort of not talked about much for the last couple of weeks. Probably was carrying a little bit on through that ankle and foot prior to is it Lars Frank? How do you say it? Is that right? Liz Frank injury. But if he can come along with that kind of like confidence and just continuity and consistency in his game, like, we're starting to ravel off a long list of players still that are out to come back in. You know, maybe that's another good. Langford played unrestricted minutes in the VFL this week. Snelling's back playing limited time, but back in the back. So we're finally in a position where it's like, man, the team sheet's starting to look good. The performance looks good. And we've got some big ins still to come back.
Tom Hurd
might not get his game.
Not on the emergency list anymore.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about the VFL in a second, but I just wanted to highlight a few players that probably don't get a vote, but the young kids. So Hobbs, Perkins, Nick Martin, like Durham. I think these guys will be very important to our side over the next few years. Ambrosio, obviously, we've mentioned. I feel like those guys are going from strength to strength, and they're no longer 5 games in. It's like, okay, well, they're 15, they're 20, they're 25, they're 30 games, and it will take them another season or two to be really consistent, high-level performers. And that's the unfortunate side of having such talented youth, is that you can't expect them in season 1 to dominate. It's like, okay, they might play well in patches, or one game might be good, but it's going to take them a few seasons to really get to that level. But we are seeing it from a number of those kids now.
I thought Big Boy Draper played probably his best game that I've seen for a while. A couple of good, strong tackles, kicked a couple of goals, took a hanger. Like, he's up and about.
He was playing like a man that he knew that
he was ready.
We'd put a $700,000 offer out to his opposition that week. He was trying to put his man down to make sure he's still the number 1 ruckman.
I thought he and Phillips, I love Phillips. I always want to put him in the votes. I think he's just been that workhorse. Like, he's always there. He always plays his role really well. He's got the experience. He's given direction. I thought he played really well again. He had 16 hitouts. And I think Draper had 15, going up against Ryder and Marshall, who's supposedly the 2nd ranked ruck combination in the competition, who both had 12. So I thought Ryder and Marshall were both really going to get a hold of us, and that was going to be the ball game. And the boys smoked them.
I was very worried about Ryder at the start of the game. Very worried. So I thought it was amazing.
All right. So Redmond 3, McGrath 2, Shield 1.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Good. Lock VFL.
VFL, 3 wins in a row. I think it was either 14 or 16 AFL listed players play on the weekend. And I guess pre-season, we were talking so much about how good our depth was, except we lost about 6 forwards. But now that we've actually got a relatively healthy list again, it's like, all right, like, there is a light of the tunnel if we can keep a relatively healthy list, and we don't have, say, like 4 or 5 injuries in one area of the ground. I think there are good signs.
Did you hear how Langers and Snell went individually?
I heard more about Baldwin, and like Baldwin kicked 3. Who was the other? Like a few of our key position players played quite well. There was a couple of injury concerns. Reed, I think, might have tweaked his ankle. So not sure about Langford and Son.
Fucking another injury. Thanks.
Yeah, I thought Zach Reed was a bit stiff to miss out.
I couldn't believe it, actually.
I thought with Zach Reed missing that Stewart was going to be a definite, but it's hard to argue with the performance that we gave, that the team, like, it looked more balanced than we've looked for a while. And maybe that is when your halfbacks really stand up, that your fullback line does get that reprieve. You know, it's not all on Callie and Laverde and Ridley all fucking day to have to win contests when we can stop the ball coming in. We talked about when we played Geelong early, the best way to beat a big full forward is to cut off the supply. And that's what our halfback line did. King didn't get anywhere fucking near it. Kicked his 1 goal. Like,
I'm very frustrated all game.
Yeah, the next Buddy Franklin's like kicked 1 in the commentary box, just like jerking each other off over it. And then like he was unsighted for the rest of the game. Unsighted.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the other player I forgot to mention, Stewart kicked 3. He's been playing as a forward the last couple of weeks. Menzie kicked another 2, and he kicked 2 the week before. So good signs for our forward line that we can maybe bring in a Baldwin, a Menzie, a Stewart, and they've got good form for a number of weeks in VFL.
Do you think we'll see Menzie? Like, from a full forward line perspective?
We have to, don't you? Why would we pick him up?
Who comes out of that full forward line?
So from what I've heard, is like a pressure forward. Yeah. So rather than like a Wright, a Jones, much smaller than those guys, but chase and tackle. And if we're not giving Wanganeen a game Like I know Guelphy's been playing well in that role, but we really need a little live wire. Not that he's a small forward necessarily, but we need a little bit of that pressure in our forward 50.
Surely Durham and Guelphy are doing enough to keep their spots. I know Durham had a bit of a knee complaint when he took that hanger in early on, kind of came down on that knee a little bit awkwardly, but he played out the rest of the game. Surely you're not now looking at bringing out a Guelphy or a Durham in for a debutant.
Well, I'd bring out Ham. And I would have Durham play more of that wing role rather than like a pressure forward role.
But surely Ham comes out and Langford comes straight back in. Langford's got to be ahead of Menzies, surely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends how I guess he pulls up and went through his minutes,
Although and then you got McGrath out, so there's another spot.
Yeah, McGrath's out. They might even look like Hobbs is. I don't want him to come out, but they might look at because he's so young, rest him for a couple of games at the end of the the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I think what's he played? 10 games,
roughly.
Yeah. Well, Perko played what 18. And a couple of
but they looked at both Cox and Perko last year. They looked at their workload that he wanted to play a full year.
Do you think that given the fact that we're playing West Coast, maybe we roll the dice a little bit and manage whoever kind of needs to manage? Or do you think this now becomes like we have to do everything?
We have to win it. This is our grand final, is winning back to back. This is all we have for the rest of the season.
We win 2 in a row and then Sydney at the MCG. All of a sudden.
Looking at West Coast versus Geelong, I wouldn't take West Coast easily at all. We've got a number of their key players back. Mm-hmm. If you look at their list, and I've sort of looked at it almost all season, they've had injuries, but they've had a lot of good players playing that have just been fucking out of form. And they're actually looking like they're starting to get back to a little bit of good footy. There
was a lot of talk with Geelong, though, that they'd gone extra hard as part of a conditioning block because they came up this week against the West Coast. So
we're not a Geelong. We're not a top four.
I get that too, but like I'm saying, if you're coming up against the Geelong that's at 80% because they've had a big week on the track, and you've still been done by like 3 or 4 goals, and after the second half they got a handle on them, and it wasn't super close. But yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong.
They're playing for the spoon this week. This is their one chance to get up and get off the bottom.
Yeah, fuck.
I'd almost go so far right now. My thought is to tip West Coast.
Really?
Well, it's over there. I think they're playing better footy than what their position sort of suggests.
We beat them over there.
When have we this season played 2 good games in a row?
Well, we haven't played one good game in a row. Now we're coming in for 4 quarters together.
We're playing our first 4-quarter effort for the last 2 years.
West Coast last year, beating West Coast in West Coast was like, they were like, this is our galvanizing win.
Yeah. It was the line in the sand moment.
Yeah. The big one away. It was the first time West Coast had been beaten at Optus Stadium in like forever long.
I can't remember the last time. I remember even as a kid growing up, it was like just a write-off of a game. We were playing in West Coast against West Coast. It was just a write-off of a game.
Anyway, we'll save the West Coast chatter for Thursday night. But it'll be interesting to see the team list. But it's like fucking finally like a nice problem to have. And this is the problem we thought we were going to have this year. Like we said before, is like good quality depth and having, the selection committee and the selection process have to actually be an arduous activity because you've got so much good to choose from. I always think though that like you need to reward form and effort in the seniors before you reward it from the VFL, because as we've seen, there's not a lot of transfer. Like Baldwin's kicked like 30 goals in the resis, like in the twos. It's great, but he's kicked.
ZBT tears it up every single week. Yeah, tears it up. Then he goes into the AFL system. He's just not there.
Well, and you're always going to have players that are like incredible twos players. You're an incredible twos player, but just can't quite seem to make that next step up. Can't get a handle on the speed. So I'd be very surprised if, like I said, it was a Guelphy who do you think's closer to getting dropped, Durham or Guelphy? Guelphy?
Durham.
You think Durham's closer to getting dropped?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's a tough call.
Ooh. I mean,
Guelphy hits the scoreboard a little bit more, and I think he's a little bit more versatile.
We did say at the start of the season, the thing that was holding Guelphy back being that lock 22 was if he could just get 1-2 goals a game, he cements himself that high pressure player. He goes from a fringe player to a lock. So you're right. Durham probably gets like a goal every 3 games, maybe. So you're going to drop someone.
But like, what's Durham done wrong? What's he not doing well enough?
No, but you asked the question if you're going to drop either of them, and we have to make that decision. I'm going to drop Durham before Guelphy.
I think his contest work. They play different though. Like Guelphy's playing a lot closer to goal than Durham. Yeah,
you one of the two. So
you made us compare them.
Yeah. But what you're saying
hey
is,
guys,
you're comparing a midfielder and a forward, and then you're saying, well, the midfielder's not scoring as much as a forward. It's like, but do you expect him to?
Yeah, but getting goals out of the team sheet that we have is so hard. I'm going to take someone that has the same pressure game that he has and scores goals. If I'm going to pick.
So right now, I'm not dropping either of them. I'm not saying one of them.
Well, you picked the wrong one. I probably would have come at you no matter which one you picked. Durham's hands over the last 2 or 3 weeks have been so impressive.
Yeah.
He's taking these incredibly difficult contested marks over guys who are fucking 3 or 4 inches taller than him. Like has been so. How good our mid-season draft picks have all worked out to be pretty good. Snelling, Durham, now D'Ambrosio looks pretty good.
Massimo looks like he belongs in the AFL, and that's 3 cemented 22 players probably coming up from mid-season draft. Like anyone can pick up a good person, and we had 3 amazing picks last year, but how hard is it to pick 3 top 10 players out of the draft? But to pick these kids that are playing in the seconds or playing in sandfuls and stuff like that. That takes talent to pick up decent picks like that.
Look, I asked Russ, I think the podcast that you missed, say we end up finishing 16th this year and we get the 3rd round draft pick. Are you trading that 3rd round draft pick for 1 or 2 players that are maybe fringe, but in that kind of like 100 to 150 games played for next year?
According to Brasher, we're winning a premiership in the next 2 to 3. So if you picked a top 3 draft pick, they're not really contributing in those 2 or 3 years, not to that level. Yeah. So if we think our window is in like not next year, but potentially the year after that, then I would say we do go and look to trade it for an experienced player.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to see some 1 or 2 experience and like people that bring standards, hard trainers, disciplined, good team players.
It's essentially what the mid-season draft has become, right? It's almost like a mature age draft. The mid-season draft is a mature age draft.
And I have a hole, I need to fix it straight away.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get a kid, because what's the point of picking up a kid mid-season when you have a hole?
And you're rewarding current form too, I guess.
So I need someone to come in straight away to fix a hole, so you can always go mature.
Yeah. I like it. What do you think about a mid-season trade period?
I hate it.
I
watch a lot of NBA, and you see a team that starts the season and then looks different halfway through. I don't want AFL to turn into that.
Even this year when we could trade and go from completely awful to
I think it adds an extra layer of complexity, and I think I'm with Locke. I don't mind adding to a roster, especially when you've had a year where injuries have been quite decimating and you've got gaps there.
What about loaning players?
No, I don't like that. I think I like that even less than how can you, I don't think it's fair on a loan player to then come up against the side that they're contracted for. And what do you do in that situation?
You get some minutes in. I see what you're saying, because it happens in European soccer all the time, but you normally trade to different divisions, different leagues, you might, people in different divisions, that kind of stuff. But I do like the idea of, again, if you're missing someone, let's say all 3 of our ruckmen are out and we're desperate for a ruckman, just GW Gold Coast were last year. And then in some club we've got Brian, who we'd love to get games into. Yeah. But he's just sitting on the bench and we'd love to see him get some AFL time. Why not send him up to GWS?
I guess the loan idea would be interesting in terms of its impact on club finances, but we're also not in a position where you have salary caps. So even if you were loaning out your good players to help with your bottom line, you still can't necessarily turn around and spend that money. It's like you're Manchester United and you have this bankroll and you can go after the best players in the league because you have no salary cap.
Yeah.
All right. The girls, the VFLW girls, KC Demons is one of their hardest games during the year, and they've just come up in a semi-final and flogged them 76-9. So KC didn't score at all after the halftime. Oh, they kicked a goal after halftime. So very, very impressive year from the VFLW girls. They head back to the big dance.
2 weeks time, is it? It's a week off next week.
Is it a week off next week?
Yeah, I think because they won this, they go straight to finals, and then I'm pretty sure there's another week of qualifying finals.
So it will be. Seems they lost to Granny last week. I wonder who they're playing. I haven't figured out who they're playing yet, but fucking good on them. I don't know.
Good form coming into the AFLW. Like 10 of those players will be in our AFLW side.
That's going to be tough, though. Like, I think preseason's already started for the AFLW.
Well, to have that many of the girls be rewarded with contracts means it's a good thing for them. And then with like the amount of like the girls were picked up, like they're elite.
Yeah,
and that's in that squad. We picked up some real. Apparently, where our recruiting's been so good, we've been hindered in the draft going into the draft. This is how it's not like the way they do the draft apparently is a little bit different to the boys do the draft, and it's kind of just on opportunities, and it was a bit confusing. But
so it's like priority picks,
almost, yeah. So the other expansion clubs are getting higher picks than us because we've done better recruiting off season. But that's just where we are.
You'd think you'd get priority as like one of the newer teams coming in, but I guess there's 5 or 6 teams coming in.
Yeah, and those teams are going to get rewarded before us because we've done such a good job.
Annoying. Oh well.
Typical AFL.
Yeah, anti-accidents.
Like, what do you expect?
Lovely.
It's amazing how long we've got to talk for when we've got things positive to say.
Well, we usually talk the same amount of time. It's just there's more good and less ugly.
Maybe just walk out of the podcast a little bit more upset than I know after recapping all the shit from the weekend.
Yeah, good.
Good. Go Don.
Go Bombers, Luck.
Go Bombers.
There it is.
He's up and about. We'll see you Thursday night when we
got
chat.
The beanie. The beanie with the logo out rather than tucked in this week.
Yeah. All right. We will see you Thursday night when the team list is announced and we talk through our game versus the West Coast, aka our premiership, as Russ has coined it. 2 in a row. Every 2 in a row.
4 wins out.
We're currently only 5 wins out of the 8. So who knows?
There's not games.
Imagine we beat Brisbane and Sydney and all of a sudden it's like, the other wheels fall off. And Sydney wouldn't be our first, like, if the Saints had beaten us, they would have gone 4.
Yeah.
So we're essentially beaten the top 4 team.
You're saying is our top 4 team.
Don't get your hopes too high up.
All right, boys. We'll chat Thursday.
Good on.
All right. See you, mate.